So you want to learn how to fill out forms automatically using Cypress? You're in the right place. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you exactly how to test real-world web forms using Cypress, including text inputs, checkboxes, radio buttons, dropdowns, and how to avoid some of the flaky test traps that even the most experienced testers fall into. But here's the catch. There's one common mistake people make at the end of the test that makes everything look like it passed, even when it didn't. Stick around, we'll cover that and how to fix it right away. And if you want a companion guide to this video, there's a link in the description for some best practices I've learned over the years. Top 5 test automation best practices. So while you're making these forms, the tips in the guide will help make your test rock solid. Let's kick things off with the most basic and most important part of any form, the text field. Cypress makes this easy if you're selecting elements the right way. So the main thing for this is you do the cy.get, there's a function called .type that lets you type into forms. Just make sure you're using stable selectors like IDs or data test ID attributes, because a brittle selector will cost you hours of flaky chasing later. But let's jump in. Let me share a little form I wrote up, actually ChatGPT wrote up, and we'll start testing it with Cypress. Here we go. All right, everyone. This is going to be the little spooky contact form that I had ChatGPT generate for me. This is supposed to be a bat. I don't know why. I tried a couple times to make it look more bat-like, and I guess these are two little cute eyes on this little... Anyway, I don't know why it looks that bad, but I like this font. It's really cool. But anyway, we're going to test this form. So we're going to use the .type to fill out this full name, email, and message. And I had ChatGPT fill out this form, so I don't know if it has good selectors or not. So we'll find out as we go. It's going to be a surprise to me as well as you. Let's dig into this. All right, so I just installed Cypress, and yeah, so it just has the basic stuff here. So we're going to go to, let's see what that address is. All right, it's running on my local server here. Ugh. Control-C. That's what I get for skipping between MacBook and Linux. All right, so let's change this. We are filling out a form. Fill Halloween form. This one we're going to show you how to do. Let's see, this is called, sorry, it's getting late, so if I start talking weirdly, that's why. So here we go, fill text fields. And we're probably going to have a before each, and we're going to refactor this out into a before each. But for right now, we're going to visit it inside this test and let it do its thing. So, hey, look at that. It's erratically filling out the code. I love you, GitHub Copilot. Let's see if that actually works. All right, so it's saying, hey, type this name, John Doe. So let's see, does this even work? But let's look at the form. Let's look at the code. Let's go over here. We got the contact form. And what is this? What is this form? So usually what I do is I inspect it. And down here, I know I apologize if this text is too small to see, but you can see right here. Let me see if I can bump up that text at all. Oh, there you go. That's a little bump up right there. ID equals full name. So I'm going to use the ID of full name. So I think ChatGPT or GitHub Copilot, getting them mixed up, did it wrong. So really, it's not name. It's going to be full name. And we're going to type John Doe. Let's see how this works. I'm going to do a little cy.pause right after this, just to make sure everything stops. Keep hitting Command instead of Control. All right, Control save. Here we go, and let's give it a go. So here we are in Cypress. I got that fill form.cy.js. Let's click that, and it ran pretty quickly. And looky there. I don't know why it's so cut off like this, but hey, look. cy.pause. That's why it's wanting to pause. But we got it. John Doe. That easy. And email. There we go. Let's go and put that in next. Let's fill out the rest of the forms. I got email. So let's use this handy dandy thing. Boink. And let's get the email. I said let's get the email. Boink. There we go. Oh, cy.get email. Let's go ahead and just copy that to the clipboard. I like that. That's a good identifier. Head back to Visual Studio. And now, boom. What are we going to type here? I am Seth at Seth is awesome. .com. I should put Seth is cheesy, but you know, I want to give myself props today. But the cy.get is what we copied from that thing. So let's go ahead and paste that in. Oh, it is just email. All right. Cool. So this should just work. And it probably automatically ran in the background. But look, there we go. And yeah, let's hit message. What kind of message should we put here? But let's first, boink. Boink. Well, message. There we go. Copy to clipboard. I think GitHub Copilot is making the selectors better than the developers at my company do. Got that message, and this is a test message. You know what? That sounds awesome. I'm gonna get rid of this pause. I don't think it's necessary. We only got one test here. And let's save this. Flip back over, and there we go. It ran it. Let's just rerun everything. So you just see it all running. There you go. And perfect. So that is putting in text. I'm just going to give you some caveats right here, is that if you put in the wrong text right here, you're going to see, if you're going to put something that's not an email, this is an email form. And let's see if we can look at the code here for the email. There we go. Down here. Here is the form. And if we look at this email form, class form control. Oh, yeah, since it's I inherit this from Bootstrap, so it's going to have, and it's an email type of form. So if the type is email, it's going to enforce it as being an email type of form. So if it's not in the format of @something.com or .co or whatever, then it's going to fail. So let me just kind of prove that point here. Seth, nothing else. All right, and when you hit submit, oh, fill that out. Full name, hit submit. It's going to say, please enter an email address. So you're going to get that little pop over right there. So something to keep in mind, and that's part of the parts I keep talking about. Watch out for flaky things, because that's like an error message, and if you don't check for that pop over error message, you know, or it could be something you check to make sure there are none of those in your layout at all. So what does that even look like? So I would do like cy.contains, please enter an email address, and if it's there, then you can fail the test. But that's probably a different lesson for a different day, or maybe at the end of this video. But right now, you got everything filled out over here. You're doing good. Let's get back to the lesson and move on to the next thing. And that's it. Just .type. Now you can fill out 90% of forms of Cypress. Just keeping those tests stable. So if you want help keeping your tests stable, I've got a free guide, the top 5 test automation best practices. And it covers some simple yet hard-learned tips to keep your tests running smooth and dreamy. Now let's move on to a type of input people constantly overlook, and it's a sneaky source of flaky failures. All right, next up, we got checkboxes and radio buttons. Small elements, big testing problems. Whether it's subscribe to updates or select your role, these fields control key logic, but people often forget to test edge cases like toggling or defaults. So the main function you're going to use here is .check, and that will help check these boxes, and also .uncheck. This is something else that Cypress provides to take care of, enabling and disabling these things. You're probably going to need it to reset your form before each test. But the problem sometimes is that developers write their own custom forms, and the .check and .uncheck don't work. You're going to have to use the .click method. But for this video, we're going to use .check. Okay, here's the next part of the test is going to be the radio buttons, like clicking these guys right here. Then after that, we're going to check this guy right here. So, email, phone. How do we deal with radio buttons? Let's get into the code. Actually, before we jump into the code, Cypress has some methods like .check, for like checkboxes and such, or these radio buttons, but that's only if it's of a particular type if it's the input type field. So let me jump over here just to the web form here. So if I look right here at this one, go down to this and input ID, you see right here, it is a type equals radio. So that makes, and it's an input right here. So input and type equals radio. If a lot of developers know how to like restyle buttons or other things. So if this ends up being a button and then it has like an ARIA label and they change it that way, or ARIA type or whatever, it's not going to work. Cypress only understands input. So if it's not an input, then you're going to have to use .click to make things work correctly. But since these are real radio buttons, you can use .check. So if you ever use .click or .check and it doesn't work, that's because this is not, because it's not an input type. Your developer did some tomfoolery. Whoever Tom is and whatever foolery he is doing, that's what happened. So let's get with the next test here. And this is a thing you're going to want to reset things every time. I'm going to reset it just by revisiting that site. So let's do this. And no, we're going to do radio and checkbox. And I think my my GitHub Copilot knows me a little too well that I really like Halloween. Anyway, here we go. I should just disable that right now, but I still like it when it does get things right. But let's get that input first. Let's go back to Cypress. I love doing it the easy way. If we're going to click this phone, let's click the phone. I think by default it email clicks, so let's click phone. And boink, select it. All right, cy.get contact phone. Let's see, doing .check works. Oops, I forgot to revisit the site. That is a big problem if you forget to clear out the form. So either we're going to clear out all the fields or we're going to revisit this page. Otherwise, everything you left from the previous test is going to mess up your next test. So yeah, that's a big problem with test when you don't really notice that and you're just writing and going crazy and don't realize that, hey, all the crud from your previous test is now going to interfere with this test. So make sure you're either revisiting the page, reloading the page, or clearing out the fields on purpose. Let's see how this goes. I'm gonna skip the first part Let's test so we can see what's happening. And go over here, and let's rerun this test. Ah, it clicked the phone. Cool. And then, just to see that happening a little bit more, let's do a cy.pause. And then, after the pause, it's going to click that, and then let's click it back to, let's do another cy.pause, just for debugging purposes. And let's do that cy.get contact email. Well, I don't know if that's actually what it is, so let's see what the form says. And email, boink. Yeah, it is contact email. Whoops. So it is right here. It must have been reading the code since the code is in here, so it's not too much of a surprise that Copilot knows what's going on. All right, let's run this. Over here, it's paused. All right, so that's before setting anything. We're at that pause. So let's go to the next step. It's going to get contact phone, and then it should check it. And go. It did not. What just happened? The pauses mess with it. Let me rerun this. All right. Resume. All right, so it got the phone. Resume. And it got the email. Okay, there it goes. I don't, maybe just clicking it one line by step just didn't do the right thing for some reason. But you can see right here, it switches back and forth. So now let's do the last one. Let's do this checkbox. Agree. All right. Copy. Let's do another little cy.pause here. And, oh, yep, it does not know that one, so .check. All right, so now we're paused. I'm just going to hit resume. So it should switch over to phone. Cool, it did. Then switch over to email. Awesome, it did. And checked off agree to the terms. We're pretty much through this whole form except for this drop down and hitting the submit button and checking things. All right, so let's get to the next one, and now I'll show you. I'll show you how to do this drop down right here next. All right, so it's easy to test and it's also pretty easy to mess up. But with Cypress, if you've got some built-in guards, just make sure you're not skipping those guards. Okay, but what if your form has drop-downs, like country selection or age range? There's a subtle trick with those we'll hit next. So drop-downs may look simple, but testing them wrong leads to silent failures you won't catch until a user reports them. These are your HTML tag select and HTML tag option menus. Cypress handles them pretty easily, unless they're dynamically rendered or styled beyond recognition. Happens quite a bit in the React world. But for this one, we're going to keep it simple, and all you do is .select. So you do cy.get your selector and .select the option that you want. So if the dropdown loads from an API, you might need to wait or assert that the options exist before interacting. So it might take a second for them to fill out. Just don't assume your first value is automatically selected by default. Some forms don't do that. So now let's just jump into coding this up. Let's do some drop downs. Okay, so the next step in our process here is getting this drop down and clicking on stuff. There's multiple ways of doing that. But there's the Cypress way if you have a standard drop down form with the input style. And we can validate that by looking at the code here. Yeah, if you look at, go back up to here, and it is, you see there is a select field here. And the select field is filled with options. So this select plus options, hopefully you can read this. That is something that Cypress can totally handle. Otherwise, and this lets you like do like .select and whatnot. Otherwise, you're gonna have to be doing some .clicking and other stuff if your developer has done their own custom dropdown, which happens a lot, unfortunately. I hate it when devs do that. I'm like, just use the built-in stuff. It's so much easier to test. Come on, devs. Come on. Why are you making a custom div for something that already works well by default? Anyway, rant. I'm ranting. Let me get on to testing. So let's write this dropdown test. All right, let's get rid of the pauses in that previous test, because we don't want that ruining our day, do we? No, we do not. But we're also going to skip this one. We will come back to this test. Hit. Oh, select drop down, yes. Don't skip. Select drop down. You did not fill it out correctly. You missed a 0. Here we go. All right. So let's get this drop down right here. It is ID department. Let's go to get that. Dot select. And we're going to go for QA, I think is the second one in that option. Let's see, is that right? Get rid of this. Why isn't it not letting me select anything? I do not know, but anyway. I think it is. Yeah, we got sales, QA, or support. So I'm going to choose QA. And yeah, let's see what happens. Oh, it did it. But let's rerun it and see that. Boom. Very quickly. Boom. QA. And that's all you need to do. And let's see what happens if you choose something that doesn't exist. Foo. It's going to wait for it, and it's going to give you an error that foo doesn't exist. So you're going to get error there, but nothing's going to happen on the form. Let's change that back. And we got ourselves a nice test here. And I think you can just cycle through all of those if you wanted. But I'll leave that as an exercise for you to pick the support field and then go back to hitting the sales field. But that's it. You got to drop down cy.get .select, and you are good. If you, in a future video, I can show you how to parse all those options and then go through each of those options in a loop. But I'm going to try to, I'm talkative tonight because I'm a little bit sleep deprived, so I'm going to keep it short and simple. Let's move on to the next thing, which is submitting the form. Let's go and give that a try. Now let's move to the part that seems simple but causes the most wasted test reruns, submitting the form itself. All right, so submitting a form should trigger a state change, like showing a success message, redirecting the user to a new page, or sending an API request. But Cypress won't complain unless you tell it what to look for. So really, it's pretty easy to trigger a form submission. You just do .click on the submit button. I think it also has, Cypress has a .submit method that I've never used in testing because I always test like a user and just hit .click. So let's get into it. I'm going to do some screen sharing here, and we're going to look at how to submit forms and then test that it successfully got submitted. Here we go. Now let's submit the form. I want to skip this And we're going to do a brand new test here. Hit submit form. There you go. What is it going to fill out this time? All right, 127.0. Oh God, I cannot type. .0.1. There you go. And we're just gonna start the very dumb thing and hit and try to just submit the button. I think there's two ways with Cypress to submit, but we're just gonna try the clicky way, which is the way I always do it. And then I think there is a like form submit or dot submit or something that I've never used. So I don't know why you would use it, but maybe there's some reason I don't know about. But let's get to figuring out what the button is. Let's go over to Cypress here. Oh, I didn't save it. Oh, I didn't close out. And whew. That should work. All right. So what we want with this last test is to get the submit button. Let's see what it is. I got cy.get button. .btn, really? See, this is where we get into the weird, flaky behavior, because .btn does not seem like a good selector to me. So let's look into why it's giving us that selector and see if there's a better selector to use or if that's all we got. So let's get down here to the submit button. So I would .btn, so it's trying to match on this class .btn, and I think that is a horrible, horrible selector. So Cypress just gave us something that I totally disagree with. I think the easiest thing actually is to look for the word submit. So using cy.contains and then do a dot click on it. So let's do that instead, because yeah, that cy.get.btn is horrid. I hate that. Bad Cypress. Bad. So I would do cy.contains, yeah, submit, and then click it. All right, so let's go over here and let's see what happens here. Let me rerun that. And it's not very easy to see, but it's a little popover, and you probably cannot see it in the video, but it says, please fill out this text field. I don't know if whoops. Yeah, submit. Please fill out this text field. Let's see if I can bump it up. Nope. Too far. Yeah, if you hit submit, nah, that text field wants to stay the same no matter what I do. All right. So, yeah, you're going to get an error because you didn't fill out the rest of the form as expected. So let's fill out the rest of the form. We're just going to do the happy path. So always start with the happy path and know that our form works at all. So we're going to basically copy and paste all our previous test work. I'm just going to copy all this. Boom. We're going to do the drop down. Just get this. Booyah. And then we're going to, let's just check, let's do the phone. And I'll delete the email one in a second here. But boom. And yeah, get rid of this line. And let's click submit here. Let's rerun. And you see right there, form submitted at the end. That's how you know things passed. So we can do a little test now. Form submitted. Dot click and cy.contains. form submitted. I don't think that dot should be visible as necessary, but I'll leave it in. Let's see what happens. Does it work? Did it pass? Yes, it passed. Cool. Oh, and we got some more data down here. So yeah, we could check all this stuff. So let's see, let's get this data, and actually I'm going to do that in the next section. We're going to be doing some form validation in the next section. So this is how you, but before moving on, let's see about that dot form thing. I've never used it, so I'm going to have to look it up on Cypress's website real quick. Dot submit. Let's see, bump this up for you. Let's see, dot submit. So cy.get, yeah, you have to get the form and then submit the form. That's it. Let's see where this form is. Whoops. Sorry, I can go back over here. And what is this form? The form ID is demo form. Click that. So let's try this out. I'm going to cy.get, and it was, what is that, demo form dot submit. All right, let's see if that works as well. I've never done this before. So let's see if this will work. So far it doesn't look like it. Let's rerun. Oh, that's my bad. That's an ID, Mr. Jackson, and it passed. There we go. Let's look at some of the details here. Submitted the form, and we got form submitted. There we go. Boom. So yeah, you can use either one, whatever looks better in your code. I kind of like this because I think it I'm gonna delete this. I like this more, the dot contain submit, because it's less likely to change in the future. It's probably always going to say submit. And if it does change, it's a lot easier to update the test than trying to figure out whatever new weird half-baked scheme the developers have come up with for some type of weird, crazy form selector. So yeah, this is my preferred way of doing it. It's kind of the way the customer would look at it too. They're going to look for that submit form and they're going to click it. And yeah, that is that. We haven't really validated everything though, because there's a whole bunch of problems that could happen. We could have done this form, it submitted successfully, but what if, you know, we didn't add something here, we submitted it and it submitted successfully when nothing actually got filled out, you know? What if we typed some stuff, but it wasn't really what we expected? And what happens when we accidentally don't clear things out? Right now, we're visiting every single time, so we're not going to be stepping on the form at all. But if I just get rid of the cy.visit from each of these, then you'll see problems quickly. So we'll do that in the next section. A flaky test often isn't flaky, it's just vague. Be precise in what success looks like. Check those that the form actually worked. And now, for the part even experienced testers mess up, it's not what's in the form, it's how you structure your test around it. Here's where even solid testers get burned, because these mistakes don't show up right away. There are a few silent killers of form tests, using fragile selectors, like div nth child for div. I've done it. I'm not proud, but I've done it. You've also not clearing data before you're rerunning the test, so the form's already filled with other stuff. You're actually concatenating your text on top of things. You just gotta assume that when you're typing things, sometimes the form dynamically changes. Even the page can dynamically change as you're typing things. So make sure you're using stable selectors. Like go into data test IDs or data-cy or however your company wants to do it. Make sure you clear things out, like all the input fields, before going on to the next test. Don't rely on static timeouts, or waiting or anything. Like actually assert that things are right on the page, that the submit button looks right, that the text is there, that you expect it to submit. And yeah, make sure, again, that you're resetting this every single time you do a test on that form, or else weird things could happen. I'm going to show you some funkiness, and I think this funkiness is, I can show it very simply right here. So I'm going to do dot only, and that will only run this test. And here's already a problem, because we only want to look at this particular test, and I have this undone, then it's never gonna reach. All right, so never went to a website at all. So yeah, there's nothing to do here. So we have to uncomment this, and really what we should be doing is having a before each. So let's move this to a before each. And what was that? Nope. 127.0.0.1 and close it, because I keep forgetting to close it. Cool. So now we're going to be visiting that every single time. We don't need it here either, but that should fix the test. Yeah, there we go. And you see it passed. Cool. But let's show you some of the pitfalls here. I think I'm demonstrating my own ability to get myself into pitfalls as I'm trying to teach other people to avoid them. That's how I go. That's how I roll sometimes. So here, what I want to show is that if I do .type, and I do it again, let's call this person Dojon. And let's see what happens, because what I think is happening is it's gonna concatenate. Yeah, right there. So this is something to be really careful of. John Doe, John. Because what I think would happen is when I do the type, that it would overwrite whatever is in there. And I've made this mistake multiple times. So yeah, so if you actually wanted to change this, what you would have to do is actually clear that out. I do believe it's just .clear in Cypress. It's pretty nice. I've had other things where you actually had to do some funky stuff to clear out the text field. But this one, I think cy.get full name. That's something else I'm going to teach. But actually, I'll teach it right now since it already put that in there. Notice here it says .value. When you're doing input forms, you're not going to look at the .text of it. You're going to use the .value. And that's another thing that can actually throw you off, is if you do like have .text, it's not going to turn out right. So I'm actually going to comment this out because I'd like to just show that off a little bit more. But let's continue with what I was showing you before, which is cy.get full name. And I will not hit complete this time. And .clear. And I should clear it out, and then there you go. Now that's what I expected. Dojon for the second one. Type Dojon. So .clear right here is what you need. And this is kind of stresses the importance of actually checking that you've done the right thing. So let me uncomment this now and do something else I always do by default the very first time. So I do like, does it have text? And let's see what happens. And as you see right here, you can see this very, very small text. Can I bump that up at all? I'm trying. Anyway, right there, it says expects it to have text John Doe, but the text was nothing. But you see right here, John Doe, it has text, but it says nothing because input fields go by value, .value, not .text. If you wanted text like these fields, like the label right here, you can do .text and get the text from these, but for these, it's value. So keep that in mind when testing these things and validating forms. So should have value. And let's try that again. And that should all pass and be good. Yeah, it went on. It did everything. And yep, to have value, John Doe. And that's basically what you, that's how you validate your form as you go. So really, and I can leave this as an exercise for you, is to make sure to go through all these things and, you know, check the text field values. But how do you check the value of, hey, this guy? How do you know? It selected QA. Let's give it a try. cy.get. Ah, there it is again. Have value. Let's see if that works. The value was QA. Why? What? What's happening here? All right, so this is how options are set. So if we look at the HTML here, for the select, look at what the value is here. I don't know if you can see this. Bump it up a bit more. See this option value equals sales, and it's a small thing, but the display text is this capital sales. But if you want to actually get what's in the form, that input field, you do .value. So let's lower it to lowercase QA, and that should solve that problem. Boom. There we go. It has the QA. But if you wanted to check it actually has the actual QA in there, we can also use the good old trusty cy.contains QA. And that worked. So we can actually choose something else. Let's say select sales. And should have value. I think it's just lowercase sales. And cy.contains QA. This should fail. What? All right, so what happened here? What happened here? You know what? If you do this, guess what? It is there. It does contain it. It is visible. It's just, you have to click on this first, so it's strange. It's so cy.contains, I thought it would work. It does not work. You have to actually look what's in this thing, and .have value is going to be the way to do it. But how do you look at this .sales? That's actually in seeing if that is the selected thing. I usually dig into the code. I'm going down a rabbit hole here. If you want to leave, I totally understand. Anyway, please don't leave. Stay with me here. All right, so what does this look like? So we got that, we got the option value. I think you need to look at what is the current value of this thing? So there is over here the style.form.select computed. And let's see if we can get that's just the style box right there. I totally forgot how to do this, so I'm probably gonna skip that part of me doing this. I'll wait till I'm have a little bit more juice running in the brain, but there is a way to grab this. I think you find out which option is the selected option. So the value of these options, they have one that is set to selected or not. That's like their value, but that'll be a future video. But that's a way you can check to see which option is actually there, and then from those options you can actually check what the text is. I think I just made this more confusing than it should be, but really, yeah. But I just wanted to show you that, yeah, it can get wonky. It's totally solvable, but be careful. It can trip you up. Make sure you validate before you just assume your code works, because as you can see, for me, I've been doing this crap for over 20-something years and I still mess it up. So yeah, you got to do a few things. And let's now go down to this stuff. So if we look at the radio button, it's kind of similar. So type radio name contact method, and we're going to be looking here. It's going to be the value again. So the same as before, we're going to look for value equals email, and that'll tell us for this form, you got input label div class. So how do we know which one is selected? So I think we have to have a different check here. So what I would expect is if I select phone, ID contact phone, it should have a value of selected. So let's try that out. So we got cy.contact phone. And you know what, I think I'm just going to pause the video and just look it up real quick. Okay. I totally didn't just pause the video to go remember how to do this. Not at all. Anyway. So you do a check here and you go cy dot, let's see. We would now expect contact phone should be checked. And that should give us, hey, oops. Ah, there we go. It is checked. Run that again to be sure. Checks it, and boom. And finally, the same thing with this agree thing should be checked. cy.get agree should be checked. There we go. So dot checked, great way to check those things. And we got the form submitted. And if we really wanted to check all the values, we can go and parse this. I can leave that as an example for you to like go through and say, hey, this info right here matches everything up here. So yeah, it's pretty easy. You just get this stuff, but I'll leave that to you. I'll leave that up to you. But really, the form submitted and that you checked all the values. But some of the pitfalls, and I can't really get into them here, is sometimes as you're like typing things, you know, there's going to be a lot of like there's some drop downs, like say you like you know those drop downs where you're typing in your state and like it just starts scrolling out and starts magically filling things in for you, or looking up a library. Sometimes it's a little bit harder to test because there's an API going on in the background that's filling in the values there. So be aware that there could be cool special behaviors. Be aware that, hey, they could be styled crazy. Also, don't always assume things are going to work out the way you expect them to in this type stuff. You might also want to check that this is not checked because what if someone implemented this wrong, and then you can select both of these instead of one or the other. So it's good to check both. And yeah, you also, doing the variations of like, okay, cool, I like leave this unchecked. Can I still submit it? And oh, see, there's a bug right there. It should have cleared this out. What happens if, yeah, so form submitted. Yeah, I think, I did not add code in here to do any type of failure or clear things out if I try to hit submit again. So usually it takes you to a different page, but yeah, I think I'm just babbling at this point. I think you get the point here. There's a lot of things that can go wonky. Got to make sure that once you hit submit here, that all the information right here looks correct. Or you could get the URL and see what is there. It's like, did it take you to the right URL? Check that. There's quite a few things to check. What page, URL, or if nothing changes and you stay on the same page and you hit submit, and there's nothing really in the UI, you're going to have to do cy.intercept and try to intercept whatever API might have gone on in the background. So yeah, I've covered that partially in something else, but I think that's definitely its own video. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to do a video on that, but I think my late night babbling here is enough for you to get the idea on how to check your form. Just make sure that you are clearing things out and checking things as you go, because you can definitely have a surprise and you've written a ton of tests. It's hours of testing going on. You get one failed test and you have no idea why the one thing in here is failing. So it'll drive you crazy. So make sure you're checking your fields as you go and checking that your submit form is right. And I think that is it for this. I think that let's go back to my talking face. You don't need more retries, you need smarter tests. And with a few small changes, you can dodge most of the pain people think is just Cypress. If you want a full checklist on how to make your test more stable and high coverage, I have a guide that can help you out. It's top 5 test automation best practices. It's in the description below. Click that link and you can get that. And remember that trap I mentioned earlier? Submitting a form without validating isn't just lazy, it's dangerous. Always assert the outcomes of what you expect to be on the page. Don't assume it just worked. So now you know how to automate text inputs. You got checkboxes and radios, you got dropdowns, you got form submissions, you know how to avoid some of the common mistakes. Also keep in mind how weird things can happen as you're typing in these forms, and weird stuff can happen that you need to assert and make sure things are good before you submit the form, and then make sure things are good after you submitted the form. But question for you, what's the form fields that you've messed with in your testing that seem to screw you up? What's your Cypress horror story around forms or testing or whatever? Just leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. And also make sure, grab that free guide, top 5 test automation best practices. It's a lot of stuff that seems simple, but actually has been hard learned experience from me. But now that you know how to do a Cypress forms, and we've been talking a lot about these flaky tests, you should check out this next video on crushing flaky tests, because when you pair that with what you just learned in this video, you're going to have some rock solid testing. All right, happy testing, everyone. Cheers. Cheers. I never say cheers. Goodbye. Bye.